She wants to sing a song.
Just I want to sing a song for 3 minutes. The speaker has eloquently talked about the beauty of the Tamil language. And this song also relates about the unlimited beauty of the Tamil language. கலைகள் மிகுந்த எங்கள் தமிழ் வாழ்கவே, கலைகள் மிகுந்த எங்கள் தமிழ் வாழ்கவே, என்றும் நிலையான மொழியே நான் உன் புகழ் பாடுவேன், அருமை கலைகள் மிகுந்த எங்கள் தமிழ் வாழ்கவே. அலைமேவும் கடல் தந்த ஆரமுதே போல் இணையே இல்லை எனவே இன்சுவையாகவே, வளரும் அலைமேவும் கடல் தந்த ஆரமுதே போல் இணையே இல்லை எனவே இன்சுவையாகவே, வளரும் கலைகள் மிகுந்த எங்கள் தமிழ் வாழ்கவே. கரும்பான கவியாம் கம்பனின் பாடலே, தேனவழிந்தோடும் நதி போல் நல்விருந்தாகுமே, கரும்பான கவியாம் கம்பனின் பாடலே, தேன் வழிந்தோடும் நதி போல் நல்விருந்தாகுமே, வீரன் பாரதி பாடல் அழகால் தேசம் உயர்வாகுமே, வீரன் பாரதி பாடல் அழகால் தேசம் உயர்வாகுமே, வள்ளுவன் குரலாலே வளர்ந்த தாய் மொழி, உள்ளம் கொள்ளை கொள்ளும் இலக்கியம் சேர் மொழி, வள்ளுவன் குரலாலே வளர்ந்த தாய் மொழி, உள்ளம் கொள்ளை கொள்ளும் இலக்கியம் சேர் மொழி, தெள்ளு தமிழ் மலர்கள் தேடி நீதம் தந்த ஔவையும் இளங்கோவும் யாவரும் போற்றிய, தெள்ளு தமிழ் மலர்கள் தேடி நீதம் தந்த ஔவையும் இளங்கோவும் யாவரும் போற்றிய, கலைகள் மிகுந்த எங்கள் தமிழ் வாழ்கவே. Thank you all for your patience. Bharatidasan, I think.
Bharatidasan.
It's a movie song, I think.
He lived in the
I don't know. It's in a
1910 through 1950 or 60s. Okay. So that is Vasu Shastri's photo. It's one of the earliest photos of Vasudeva Shastri. Thank you, Hema, for finding it for us today.
Can I ask you a question about the
the vibhuti there on
Yes.
the
Yes.
body. I don't remember. I mean, I've seen in
Yeah.
India across the forehead, but I've never seen the pattern on the arms and the chest.
Oh, they do
Yeah,
it.
it's common.
All of us.
I do it all the time.
I'm going to
It's
give
common.
it
It's common.
I do it every day.
The meaning actually.
I'm going to give it to Swami to explain this because it's a particular vibhuti pattern for a Brahmin to wear.
Yes.
But I don't know any explanation for it. You can.
So-
It's 1, 2, 3.
Wow.
1, 2, 3.
That's what I was wondering.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
They put it here also.
So it's almost like six-pack abs, right? 1, 2, 3.
So the total is 12 all the rice.
It's 6 on the body and 6 on the arms.
So-
But I don't know why 6.
So it's very interesting. We also have 12 Thiruman. The 12 is, yeah.
Can you explain Thiruman versus vibhuti?
So I'll try. I'm not an expert in this. So Thiruman is basically the symbol that the Vaishnavites wear. And I'm going to leave it at Thiruman because there are two sects. One is Y and one is U. We won't get into that. But it's actually a type of limestone that's found near Tiruvannamalai. That's where Thiruman,
Really?
Yeah,
Ah.
yeah. It's like a quarry, and they mix it with water. And in the center, it's the kungumam, basically. It's called Sri Churnam. So the Vaishnavites wear it, but that's very symbolic of Charanagati. You know, the Lord's feet, and you have surrendered to the Lord. So I don't know what this signifies. I'm sure it's something similar.
Based on the pattern of how you put your sort of costume, you can say it's a Saiva versus Vaishnava. Vaishnava put a cup, U or V,
Why?
Y or
When I'm here, it's why.
Y.
I just never saw it on the
Oh,
arms
ni
like
tangal
this,
ya?
on the chest.
So and then you have, based on the vibhuti pattern, you could say whether they are Saivas or they follow the sort of the Vedic tradition. In the Saiva Siddhanta, they put vibhuti in the neck and in the forehead.
And on the shoulders too.
On the shoulders. Whereas in the Vedic tradition, which is most of the Brahmins and South follow, where you would have the 6 in the arms,
Yeah.
and 6 in the abs, and 1 in the forehead. But what will also be interesting is usually they don't put just the vibhuti, but they also put a kumkum in the middle. That's only for the Vedic tradition, not only for Brahmins, even non-Brahmins do that. Whereas Saivas don't do vibhutis at all. It's just
But the 12, I think, at least from a Vaishnavite standpoint, they represent certain marks or chakras,
Chakras, yeah.
equivalent of chakras in the body. So I don't know if it's the same. That's it.
so. Then September 21st, 1923 happens. This date is according to D.R. Kanakamar. Any guesses what happened that day?
Okay.
Muruganar first came to see Bhagavan.
Right.
Right. There is a beautiful, exquisite story about how
Yeah.
Muruganar met Bhagavan.
Correct.
Which would be out of scope on Bhagavan's Tamil works, but it's just like everything about Muruganar, certainly gives me goosebumps every time I even actually see his picture, because he just adored Bhagavan as Lord. And I was talking to Nimi yesterday. I was explaining this to her. If you look at the entire Tamil tradition, like 3,000 years old, if you asked any Tamil scholar who is the greatest Tamil poet, without blinking their eyes, they would say it's Kambar. So Kambar is the person who wrote Ramayana in Tamil. He took Valmiki's Ramayana and made it native Tamil. So he created 11,000 Virithams. It is the most expansive, imaginative, exquisite, philosophical, you can keep adding adjectives over how well that is written. And there are poems written on Kambar Ramayana by other poets. The Bharadiyar sums up, Kambanai pol, Valluvanai pol, Ilangovai pol, right? There are only singles, 3 poets, of which Kambar is number 1. Right? So the reason I'm explaining Kambar context, so this is 1,000 years ago. Then there are a lot of poets that came and wrote a lot of exquisite, beautiful poetry in Tamil. if you take the next prolific poet, people would likely say it's Villiputtur Alvar who wrote Mahabharatam, or they would say it is Sekiyar who wrote Periya Puranam, or Manikavachar, or Namalvar. There are so many Alvars and so many Nayanmars, the 63 saints and 12 saints and Vaishnavas, wrote wonderful poetry in Bhakti, and great poetry in Jnana. And Tayamanavar, who was Bhagavan's favorite, who just lived about 500 years ago, Arunagirinathar, whom we saw earlier, Vallalar, who just lived about 100 years before Bhagavan. So there are so many poets. But what's unique about Muruganar is he singularly contributed to 26,000 verses, compared with 11,000 of Kambar. And almost 26,000 minus 4 are all about Bhagavan. There are 4 that he wrote that was not on Bhagavan. Right? And that 26,000 is a recorded poetry. There are days the poetry would just come out of him, and usually he would have his slate and the white chalk, and he would write it, and the next poem will gush out, and he wouldn't have place, so he'll erase the first one, rewrite the second one. Right? So, and I'm sure many of those poems, even those that are preserved, are not publicly available today. Right? We cannot go and buy it from a store. There are select set of those copies available, because Professor Swaminathan took great pains to get a grant from Delhi to publish a number of poems that Muruganar composed after Bhagavan left his body. But those poems that Muruganar composed while Bhagavan is still alive were published during Bhagavan's time. Sannidhi Murai is one of the collections of those poems. The reason for this sort of context is, even before Bhagavan, Muruganar came to Bhagavan, Muruganar was a select set of 6 Tamil scholars that were tasked for creating the first Tamil dictionary. Right? And he belonged to a unique club of Tamil greats of the early 1900s, of which you would hear the name Uve Swaminathan a year later. He's belovedly known as the Tamil grandfather.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason why he's called Tamil grandfather is that he went around literally door to door, because the old palm manuscripts were kept in the old attic, and they were kept for generations, where the white ants and other sort of insects would just take the palm leaves out, and he would just go to everybody's house and persistently get those palm leaves, and he literally, on a single-handed basis, published what we now call as the 5 big copiums in Tamil.
Really?
That's Uve Swaminathan, yeah. One man a month, exactly. And that just happened between 1855 to 1945, during that time. And Muruganar was a very close associate of Uve Swaminathan. And it is not clear whether Uve Swaminathan Iyer ever came and visited Bhagavan, but it's very clear that Bhagavan had a very high regard for him. The other interesting connection is the prime disciple of Uve Swaminathan Iyer is Professor K. Swaminathan. Right? So you would see the sort of the same motivation by Professor Swaminathan. He went through the same exact pain only to preserve Muruganar's work and Gandhi's works. It's the same exact concept, but done at a much larger scale in a different realm. So the reason for this background is, Muruganar could have been a great Tamil poet. He would have gotten all the accolades, right? I mean, the way that we talk about Uve Swaminathan, the way we talk about Vallalar, we talk about many other poets, people would have talked about Muruganar that way. But today, if you sort of move outside of Bhagavan's devotees, the general public in Tamil wouldn't know who Muruganar is. And he kept himself completely under the feet of Bhagavan, completely surrendered to Bhagavan. And he never went ahead and published anything. He had never any motivation to go and publish it. And there's also a beautiful story of how Sanidhi Murai itself was published by Ramana Padananda, which was written in the Mountain Path of 1969, if I'm not mistaken, right?
69.
So, if you're interested, we can send the link outside on how that itself got published, which clearly there was some difficulty during the time of that publication. So the reason for the background is, here's a great poet, a Tamil scholar, very renowned, married. His father-in-law was a devotee of Bhagavan, Dandapani Swami, gives Aksharamana Malai, he reads, he decided, that's my guru, right? And it's beautiful. And
So the Guru Vachaka Kovai also is later after Bhagavan left.
no, Guru Vachaka Kovai was written during Bhagavan's time. We'll come to it later. Right? That's an important work that Muruganar composed, and Bhagavan contributed pretty heavily to that. So that's an early picture of Muruganar. This must be in late 1920s or early 1930s. Unfortunately, many of these pictures don't have any date, so it's very difficult to sort of ascertain exact time. But you could see, Muruganar sort of, this picture is a larger portrait, but Bhagavan sits in the middle, and Muruganar is sitting on the right feet of Bhagavan, literally. And I didn't have the bigger picture. If I had posted, you would see literally Muruganar sitting at the feet of Bhagavan. In a literal way. This is another beautiful picture of Bhagavan and Muruganar. I don't know who the person is, this person, I'm not sure if any of you knew this. Okay, so hopefully this is our last slide before we part for our lunch. So when Muruganar first came to Bhagavan, he composed few, verses. There are various accounts on which verse that he actually composed. So we're going to go with the T.R. Kanakamal version of that verse. So, there are some versions where it seemed that he composed this verse from Desika Padikam, whereas this is the verse from the Tiruvambavai, the Muruganar's Tiruvambavai is what's been written here. So I'll read the verse if you want, but Muruganar composes this verse and shows to Bhagavan.
Before even seeing him, that's what my mother has told, that he came with the poem.
Yeah.
For the first time when he saw Bhagavan, he had the poem
Yes.
in it. Because in those days, whatever he had in hand, because
So
in
you-
those days, when you had to meet somebody of a high esteem,
You had to
give
go in
lemon
circle.
or something,
Yes.
and then you give that lemon and then you prostrate.
Yeah, so
So
instead
he
of-
didn't want that, he wanted this. And
He didn't have money actually to buy.
He didn't, so he
didn't have-
composed
so
this,
that's what he said.
and
But
that's, I don't know the name of the thing, but he composed these even before seeing Bhagwan. He had these poems, just by reading the Aksharamalai, he took Bhagwan as his ultimate guru and composed this, and then only he saw, much later,
Yeah.
Kachamam Katti, Kanganam Katti, something like that.
So there are different versions on which poem he actually composed. But the most popular explanation is Desika Padikam, one of the Desika Padikam is what he composed. But in this version, T.R. Kanakamal says, this is the verse that Bhagavan reads. And then Bhagavan says, oh, you write like Manikavachaka, why don't you keep writing it? You will write a modern Tiruvachakam. And he literally prompts Muruganar to continue to write. This is a very sort of direct hint for Muruganar to continue the sort of the poetic journey that he began at this point in time.
No, I was just going to say, and this is sung, I'm sure everyone knows, this is sung on all special occasions at the ashram.
Yeah. So, I mean, the beauty, we will go into this slightly later. The entire Sanidhi Murai is a sort of a, he used the grammatical structure of Manikavachaka's Tiruvachakam, and he composed very similar poetry, but exclusively in praise of Bhagavan. Right? But he used the same heading, same meaning, except one particular exception, which we'll talk later. But there are two striking things. For many devotees, Bhagavan explicitly discouraged them from having to write poetry or paying attention to writing. But in Muruganar's case, he explicitly hints at him. He actually says, இப்படியே எழுதுனா மாணிக்க வாசகர் மொழி எழுதலாம் போல இருக்கே. He says, if you keep writing it, it may become like Manika Vachakar's work. He doesn't say you should do it. It's a hint. And that's enough for Muruganar, right? And he finishes that work in about a year and a half or so. The entirety of what we know as Sanidhi Murai.
No, Muruganar responds to that first by saying, you are here like Shiva, but how can you compare me to Manika Vasagar? That's his response. Who am I? But Bhagavan tells him, encourages him to write. And then that whole, In fact, when Dennis asked me to speak, he said, speak about all the 4 big Nayanars, Manika Vasagar, Trinjana Sambandar, Appar and Sundarar. But I just picked only Manika Vasagar and spent the whole time, because not only because there's material, but even though most people would rate Jnana Sambandar as, well, quote unquote greater in some sense, or maybe closer to Bhagavan because Bhagavan may identify there's more material, I think the connection with Muruganar and because Bhagavan explicitly told him to write this, I thought this one was a better thing to talk about.
And it
That's
gives
also
us more
good.
material for next.
Yeah.
That's also
That
good
too.
time management skills for me. Just shows 1 as opposed to 189 slides. So I'm going to read just this poetry because you would see the sort of the, and there's also subtle difference about Muruganar's styles and Bhagavan's style in how they approach poetry and compose poetry. And one of the things, if you're a Tamilian, you would appreciate this. If you read Manika Vachagar, if you read Devaram, which is the 3 saints composition, and you read Muruganar, you would think Muruganar's poetry would be easy. No. Muruganar uses a very elaborate, exquisite vocabulary that without knowing it was written by Muruganar, if you just read it, you would think this is composed like 1,500 years ago. The sort of the poetic vista the imagination is just so broad, and if you ever learn Tamil, and if you already know Tamil, it's worth at least learning 1 or 2 of Muruganar's poetry just for the beauty, the sort of the nuance that he brings out in every one of these poems. So I'll just read this. அண்ணாமலை ரமணன் அன்பர் கருண்மாரி கண்ணாலே பெய்யும் கருணை திறம்பாடி எண்ணாதனை எண்ணி ஏங்கடியார் எம்பாவ தின்னா சரவேதரு சேவகம் பாடி பெண்ணான் அலிகளினும் பேதத்தை நீத்துதம் உன்னாண்டுல துளிரும் உண்மை வளம்பாடி பன்னார் அவன் புகழை பாடும் கீதாமுதம் போல் தன்னார் அமைதி தழையலோர் எம்பாவாய்.
You see the na rhyme also.
Yes.
Second letter
See,
na
in
comes in every line.
Second letter. So this is, again, grammatically this is structured perfect, but not only perfect, it's actually mirroring the grammatical structure of the equivalent Tirumbavai written by Manika Vachagar. And he didn't, at this point when he wrote it, he didn't have the ambition of writing the sort of the Sanidhi Murai. He wrote it because he felt inspired by Manika Vachagar, and then he felt inspired by Bhagavan. This particular sort of line that sort of connects to me personally is Kannale peyyum karunai thirampadi. It says, with his own eyes, he emits so much grace, and with that comes so much potency. Thirampadi means there's so much potency in that, just the gaze, the eyes that look at you. எண்ணாதென எண்ணி ஏங்கடியார் எம்பாவாய். It's unimaginable how that grace works. And again, you just need to sort of have a bit of nuance appreciation for Tamil to appreciate Muruganar, because a basic sort of version of Tamil wouldn't get you to Muruganar. It's fairly sort of complex end of that spectrum, but every verse of him has such beauty woven into it that, you know, only a person who's so absorbed in Bhagavan could write it. Right?
And only Bhagavan could have inspired it.
Exactly. Alright. With that, we'll wrap it up. And we are 86 slide of 189. Thanks.